And we are live. Lafayette Mandela, Baby Fahudier, it's your favorite warrior, Blak Pantha, back in the building with a very special guest today, my brother Omowale Afrika. Peace, brother. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, bro. What's good with you?
Oh man, I'm great, brother. I'm back on this side of the soil. I'm back in Atlanta, so back with my family, back with my wife. So I'm blessed in that manner. Great to have you on the show, brother. Been watching your content on various social media platforms. Took that plunge and bought your documentary. Love the message you're getting out to the people. Your critiques of certain things. So I like to get qualified people on this show to talk about things in the African phenomenon. So that's why I started this interview series, and we're welcome to have you, brother.
I appreciate being here, bro. Been following your work as well since your Sonetta days. But
Oh man, you have to?
I know,
Oh man,
I guess you're not too fond of that period of your experience, but that's where I
ah,
was first
you know.
introduced to you, seeing you with the bros from the Amun-Ra squad. So I appreciate you tapping in with me.
Yeah, well, it was a situation. It was an experience. I learned a lot from the experience. Got a lot of opportunities out of it. So I would definitely. I don't look at it as a dark period or something I'm not proud of, but I just learned things that I had to move in a certain direction in a certain manner. So that just was from learning in that arena. So it's definitely something that I look back on and I reminisce with certain people, but something that I had to move on from in a certain manner because we're not about strictly capital gains and being a battle rap culture with scholarship. We're about uplifting. We're about building. We're about building institutions. We're about living Pan Africans lifestyle and trying to bring some of the things that our elders told us about into fruition.
Absolutely. Yeah, information is meant to serve as a catalyst for transformation. So
Absolutely.
if it's not doing that, then what's
What
the
are we
purpose
doing?
of it?
I don't do this to be
I
popular.
know, I know. Khalid said, Khalid Muhammad said is entertainment and entertainment, education, and inspiration. But I think that we got too locked in
In the
on the
entertainment.
inspiration and the entertainment part of it,
Got it like, yeah,
and not
yeah,
the education. So I think
right,
that
right. I totally agree.
we need to balance the scales.
Absolutely. Peace, brother Vasa, brother Donnie, Eric B says salute to Omowale. Put that on the screen real quick. So thank y'all for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Of course, that share, share the knowledge so we can build with brothers that want to really build things that are interested in information that can, they can apply to their life. So without further ado, brother Omowale, give us a brief intro for people that don't know you, man.
Well, first of all, I would say that like I'm a man that wears many different hats. It depends on the day you catch me on. I mean, I'm always a father. I'm always a husband. I'm always a fighter. On some days, I'm a writer. Some days, I'm an independent filmmaker. My organizing work is central to everything that I do. Um, so, I mean, that's basically it. Born and raised in Philly, served as the president of the Philadelphia chapter of the UNIA ACL for a brief period. For about the last 3 years, I've been working with an organization called Afrocentricity International, which was founded back in 2011 by Dr. Amo Mazama and Dr. Malefe Asante. I started.
Giants in the
Uh,
game.
yeah. I started with them back in 2017. Like I said, I just wore many different hats. In about 2018, I took an official position as the treasurer for the organization. And for about the last year and a half, I've been operating as the vice shanuti, which is the equivalent of like a vice president.
Okay.
But I'm just an all-around ambassador for Afrocentricity, and specifically the Philadelphia chapter. And my work is about, as you stated at the very beginning, institutions, right? It's about building grassroots institutions in our community that we finance, that are imbued with our ideology, and that we give the political and cultural thrust to.
Right. That's incredible work. But for everybody that's watching, so this is the second person in a row that has mentioned who I call the godfather of Afrocentricity, Dr. Molefi Kente Asante and Ama Amazawa. Second person in a row. So if y'all don't know who those two people are, you're hearing it from qualified people. We had Siri McDougal on the channel recently. So, same praise he's giving these people, for building institutions and, their work. So, get their work, man. I would recommend the Encyclopedia of African Religion as a starting point. It's a classic book. So, you guys go pick that up. Peace, brother B, brother Rakim, Thurman Meredith, Hotep, Baby Fahudier, Shakara Speaks, Sister Alika, glad to have you in the building, and Pure Black, thank you for joining us. So I'm going to dive right into it. If you guys have not seen the DVD that this young brother has produced called The Un-American Dilemma, you need to go pick that up, family. Definitely. We're gonna give you all the information to pick that up during this broadcast, because it's something that where we have to have these discussions in a realistic manner. And this brother has done the research. He's done he has all the sources, he has the examples, and it's really something that you can benefit from as well. So I want to ask you, Brother Omowale, what was your inspiration for creating the Un-American Dilemma documentary, I should say?
For me, it was a passion project. I think in just viewing the behavior in our community during the 2020 election cycle leading up to the presidential election, I just found it very interesting the way in which we were engaging with one another. And I think the thing that really took me aback was certain people who I thought were, Pan-African or Black nationalists or had some type of radical politic, had completely fell in line behind the democratic machine.
Yeah.
But not just only that, their posture and position towards people who had said that they wouldn't be voting in that election, they were referring to us as traitors, sellouts, fools.
I got all that.
And I'm looking at this situation, and I'm just like, man, if we understand historically the position that some of our people have taken when it comes to this empire and when it comes to participating in its political machinery, I mean, you would be calling Garvey a traitor, which many people did. You would be calling Malcolm a traitor, which many people did. So I just found it very interesting. And with all the madness that was going on, I felt as though I wanted to put an entry on record so that posterity could look back at that moment 20, 30, 40 years from now and have something that they could make sense of the moment, like where we went wrong, right? I felt like Malcolm's The Ballad or the Bullet that he put out in 1964 kind of served as that for future generations, right? We were able to look back to that period and examine the politics of our people and where they went wrong. So the documentary, that was my hope, right? To put something on the historical record that identified the different positions that folks took, where I think we went wrong, and what we need to do to move forward politically as a people in this country.
You definitely hit all those points in that DVD, brother. Man, that Ballad of the Bullet, that speech right there, we would have just, internalized that speech. We wouldn't be even, saying some of the stuff that you mentioned. Unfortunately, a lot of people love Malcolm X but haven't studied Malcolm X. You know what I'm saying? But one thing I took from your DVD was the evolution of W.E.B. Du Bois's politics. Now, in our community, W.E.B. Du Bois is looked at as a certain way because, his transgressions against Garvey. But I look at the totality, because without W.B. Du Bois, do we have a Pan-African Congress? Without W.B. Du Bois, there were many things that he did in his life that influenced, scholarship and the Philadelphia Negro and other things that he did that people rarely even talk about. Most times when he's brought up, he's really just brought up as what he did, transgressions against Garvey. But in your DVD, you covered his political awakening, his political evolution, so to speak.
Progression.
Coming from a guy that was very instrumental in getting Black people to vote for, I believe it was Woodrow Wilson.
Yes,
that
sir.
He got a lot of people to vote for, and then he gets in office and Jim Crow, right away, like, oh, thank you, niggers. Like he goes right to work, and him going through those struggles and finally just saying, you know what, enough is enough. I've put my faith in this too many times, and only to get nothing, in return, or to get worse than what we had prior to this. And then him taking his abstinence and saying, I'm not voting, for none of these people that are not going to do anything for our community. Did you know that prior to this DVD? I mean, prior to this documentary, or was that something you came along in your research for this documentary?
No, so I've been reading Du Bois for a while. I mean, and Du Bois's catalog of essays, books, journals, like it's too much. Yeah. So out of his catalog, I've probably read about that much. If his catalog is like that, So these are things that I knew, which is why I wanted to do the documentary, right? Because I'm looking at a lot of the arguments that people are making in real time in 2020, right? Our contemporaries. Right. I'm like, man, they clearly haven't studied the history, because people far more politically astute than you have pursued those strategies, and they've documented scientifically why those strategies failed and why they will not work. Right. So my thing is, if you're going to tell us to pursue a failed strategy, right, that has already been proven not to be effective, then you have to tell me what exactly are you doing strategically differently than what has already been done. You have to show me, right? So that's why I wanted to put, his evolution, because I'm a Garveyite. So, in the Garvey movement, Du Bois catches a lot of smoke. But for me, when we're trying to develop solutions for our liberation, for our sovereignty, I'm of the mind that everybody has a brick to put into the wall, right? Some of those bricks are cornerstones, but at the end of the day, we're such a fragmented people that in order to put us back together to make us whole again, there are no fragments that you could say, well, this isn't an important fragment, right? It's like if you're at like a restoration site, right? This past winter, I had the good fortune to be able to travel to Kemet, and I visited the restoration site that Tony Browder is overseeing, and just the meticulousness of which they kind of are trying to put back together this sacred space. All the fragments matter. There is no fragment that you just say, oh, well, I don't like this color right here, so I'm gonna throw it away. Right. So it's the same thing with our historical traditions of liberation. You can't look back and say, I didn't like this one, so I'm just going to throw it away. Like, no, Du Bois contributed way too much to the canon on our liberation to just completely throw them away. Now, you can, point to character flaws and things like that, but the scholarship, I think that's valuable.
But I think we start to get biased sometimes, because you can kind of do that with every one of our leaders. There was something, that we look at today and we be like, I don't really, I don't really rock that. But
we have, it's like the arrogance of a child who's looking at their parents that are raising them and saying in their mind everything that they would do different if they were the parent. You understand what I'm saying? So it's that youthful like ignorance that a lot of us have when it comes to examining our history. But Du Bois often gets cut off at 1903, right? Souls of Black folks. That's the Du Bois that people, when he's pristine and clean and still palatable for white people, for white consumption. So people like to lock him off there. But from 1903 to 1963, Du Bois undergoes just this constant political transformation. And for a 30-year period, Du Bois is operating based upon the flawed thesis that white behavior will change if white people can be educated and you can intelligently persuade them that what they're doing is wrong and how it's impacting Black people.
Right.
So Du Bois attempts this for 30 years straight, only to arrive at the conclusion in 1933 that, hold on, white people's behavior is not based off of ignorance. He said that was naive of me to believe that they are behaving this way towards us because they are somehow ignorant. Like, he's like, no, they know exactly what they're doing. In fact, we've taught them, we've educated them over this 30-year period, so they know and still are not moved. And he basically made the argument that the pathology of whiteness is sunken deep down into the psychology. He said perhaps we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what this true issue is, right? And we know scholars that came behind Du Bois, like Dr. Wilson, Dr. Bobby Wright. They went down under the surface. When you start getting that Iceman inheritance, right? Understanding the psychology of whiteness, or Dr. Wilson, the crest theory of color confrontation, right? Understanding who they are and why some of our approaches to solving the problem don't work. I mean, even the way that we've historically looked at the problem has not been an Afrocentric or African-centered approach, right? We've looked at it as the Negro problem. So that means like you're looking at yourself as the problem, and you're trying to figure out how to solve it instead of looking at it like the white problem.
Yeah.
And if you look at it that way, then it's like, okay,
around, like.
so for a better part of a century, Black people have spent their energy on how do we solve the Negro problem. Yeah, and they've done annual conferences and seminars about this question. And nobody took the time to flip it around and say, hold on, like, why am I looking at it from the perspective of my enemy? This is what Du Bois talks about, double consciousness, right? When you have those warring spirits, right? So you're looking at yourself through the eyes of your enemy. So you're looking at the problem like you're the problem, and you're trying to solve yourself, instead of looking at them and say, oh, they're the problem,
right? And
then analyze them and their behavior and figure out the appropriate solution, right? I think Baba Kamal Kambon always talks about, somebody's going to come up with that solution. I mean, if you've seen the CNN clip, you know what I'm referring to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And man, it was just so much, it's crazy because with his transgressions against Garvey, at the end he ended up sounding just like him.
Yeah. That was funny. Well, when he convened the 1940, it was the Fifth Pan African Congress. One of his co-conveners was Amy Jocks Garvey. Was it Amy Jocks? It may have been the first Amy Garvey, not the second.
Okay.
I believe it was the first.
I always found that weird that he found two women named Amy.
But she was one of his co-conveners. In fact, there is a letter with them two talking about the relationship between Garvey and Du Bois and how things were able to be reconciled. But like that reconciliation doesn't get carried. People don't carry forward that part in history.
Right.
But that
don't even know what
occurred.
happened.
You understand what I'm saying? So I think that's important.
Yeah, that's very important because, we throw him away for that, but Garvey didn't,
Absolutely.
Garvey understood he wasn't there yet. He just wasn't there.
People grow and they mature.
Right.
And you need, when people talk about Hegelian dialectics, you need that antithesis in order to evolve your thesis.
Yeah.
Right? You need something on the other side to sharpen it up so that it keeps progressing forward.
Iron
And
sharpens iron.
and when you're doing it scientifically, when your position yields to facts and reason, then that's when you start getting progress and development. But we have a situation now in the community where our positions no longer yield to facts and reason.
No.
So our positions at this point are wholly religious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're just completely based upon belief, and no amount of fact or reason or logic is
Right.
capable of changing the minds of our people right now. And
Yeah.
that's a very interesting phenomenon or interesting situation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, it man, you hit it on the head. You really hit it on the head there. Peace, brother SNK, RBG, brother Kofi Piesie TV, Mossi Clan Warrior, Science with Shawn, Mossi Clan Warrior. As always, thank you, brothers, for having my back. Brother Sane, long time watcher of the show. I appreciate it. And ATL Superstar Show. I see you in a lot of our chats, man. Appreciate y'all for appreciate you for watching the channel as well. So I know you're a political organizer. Who are your influences in that arena?
I wouldn't say I'm a political organizer. I'm a grassroots organizer. I'm an institution builder. And for me, politics is just it's all about, politics is how power dresses in public, right? So for me, everything is political, right? Who I date is political. What I eat is political. Where I shop is political. Politics is involved in everything. So I think that we have a limited understanding of politics. A lot of our people, the scope of which we consider politics is just electoral politics, meaning voting.
Yeah.
And as you know from the documentary, I was actually proposing that people abstain.
Right.
So it's my influences, Malcolm, Garvey, Dr. Amos Wilson, Dr. Marimba Ani. I would say that immediate influences, those are, of course, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. Those are the people who probably bear the greatest impression on my political outlook.
Yeah. I always say Marimba Ani is a GOAT, greatest of all time. Man, so many people sleep on Mama Marimba, man. I've had the pleasure of meeting her three or so times here in Atlanta. Powerful every single time. I mean, can rattle off things just right off top of the head, just boom, 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 boom. And you're like, man, how did you like the most obscure fact or culture or civilization? Just she's still fiery, man. Even in her old age, just killing it, man.
She was a part of the great debate that was held in Harlem back in 2008 when they were having the discussion around is Barack Obama good for the Black community?
Oh.
And her position on that debate showed the clarity of her analysis. She was one of the few people on that podium that said no. She gave an emphatic no, and she got down into the reasons why. And a lot of people are still trying to, save face, 8 and 10 years later, 12 years later now. Excuse me.
Yeah. And you just have to take accountability, at that time, I think in his first running, I was still a soldier in the Army. And I voted for him by absentee ballot from Afghanistan. And I honestly thought, that was going to be it, in my youthful 20s, I thought that was going to be the catalyst. It's going to change around here when we get a black man and all, I was, yeah. And I remember, man, a section sergeant looked me right in the face and said, what's that going to do for you? And that's what he asked me. And I was like, I didn't really have an answer. But I was with it though. I was on the train. So
it was a form of education for all of us, and I think it was an education that was needed. So now when they try to run, that same scheme on us, like we those of us who've paid attention and analyzed critically, then we're able to see the strategy
Yeah,
at
it's the same strategy
at this point in the game. So
every single time. And I want to use that as a segue because you talked about in your documentary how you were a big supporter of Barack and Bernie Sanders, and you did work as far as being out there getting people the message out of these candidates. And talk about what was the catalyst for you to start changing your political stance.
So in 2008, I didn't do any work. I was just a fanboy like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I went out. I was in, what was that? I just got back in college at that time. I returned to school late, but I was 24 in 2008. Voted for Barack like everybody else. 2012, voted for Barack like everybody else, just out of like ignorance, like
You're Black, I'm gonna vote.
2016, I started to pay closer attention to what was happening politically.
Mm-hmm.
So, but at the same time, probably about 2 years before that, 2014, around this is around the Mike Brown situation, I'm starting to immerse myself in the study of what's been happening in our community historically, right? So I'm watching like lots of lectures from Malcolm, watching lots of lectures from Amos Wilson. And the beautiful thing about Dr. Amos Wilson is whenever you watch one of his lectures, it's replete with resources, with sources that he's referencing. So then it's like you go find those sources and you're reading them and you're looking at the footnotes, and the footnotes is so it just sends you on this journey of discovery, right? So these two things are happening parallel, right? I'm getting a bit more political in my outlook, and at the same time I'm doing lots of work on self-discovery and understanding Black politics and the Black political tradition. So I'm noticing in the 2016 primary that the Democratic Party is pandering heavily to the Black community, while at the same time they are not speaking to any of the issues that are impacting people in the Black community, right? I felt like our issues were completely silenced on the campaign trail. And the person who came closest towards saying anything that would have some type of incremental benefit for Black people, I felt at that time was Bernie Sanders. So I created a campaign. The campaign was called Amplify the Hood. And the goal with that campaign was to amplify the issues that I felt were being silenced. So I had used an acronym to engage this campaign, and the acronym was MUTE. The M stood for mass incarceration. The U stood for unemployment. The T stood for transitioning neighborhoods, meaning gentrification. And the E stood for economic opportunities, right? Because Black people are systematically unemployed. And I'm like, these are like the four devils that are destroying Black America, and not one politician is speaking to them, but they're begging Black America for the vote because we represent the savior vote for the Democratic Party. So right there, I started to see like there's something wrong here. Like I felt like they were like pimping us out, like the way that we were being manipulated. And that I move off of passion a lot. Not saying I move off of emotion, because I'm not saying that I'm emotionally moved to do anything. But when my heart is in something, that doesn't mean that I just turn off the intellect, but I am moved by passion. You understand what I'm saying? So that forced me to get up and do something. And at the time, the Democratic National Convention was scheduled to be held in Philly. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to organize a protest to go and march on the DNC and force our issues to be like talked about, right? This is my naivete. But unbeknownst to me, the grassroots is a very interesting place, and there are varying ideologies that exist at the grassroots level. And what I found very quickly, by going out into the community was that the prevailing ideology that was animating that this current iteration of the movement was something known as intersectionality. And this particular ideology had a very anti-black male thrust to it. If you were a heterosexual black male, then your position in the movement is one of silence and support. You don't say anything, you don't speak unless spoken to. In fact, you're an oppressor, just like the white man. So you need to shut your ass up and sit down. And like for me, I wasn't gonna be rocking like that. So I knew right away that this is not my tribe, right? These are not my people. They're black, but they're not black like me. They don't come from my experience, my background, and I don't think. And so I went in search of my tribe, and that's when I landed in the UNIA. But the question you asked was, what was the catalyst that made me pivot into a different direction? And it was two. They happened back to back. It's the murder of Philando Castile and Alton Sterling. When that situation happened, like it really just jolted me. Like I said, I moved off passion.
Right.
That really messed me up internally.
Yeah.
And it made me sit down and say, I got to figure this thing out because our people are being hunted. At this point, we're being ethnically cleansed, and the solution is not in the ballot. So I need to apply myself towards understanding what solutions we have at our disposal and working to effectively put them in place. And that is what I've been doing consistently since that period, 1 inch at a time, moving it forward every day. I always got multiple pots on the stove. I always got something different cooking because everything that I'm cooking is working towards that one goal, which is liberation.
Talk about your initiative, Street Politics.
So Street Politics was an outdoor political education course that I taught in Philly. And it's funny because at the beginning of 2020, I did a 6-part lecture series at the Malefi Kete Asante Institute right before we actually kicked it off pre-COVID. And then COVID happened, so we had to make it virtual. But the lecture series was called Strike Drum. It was Strike Drum, the Political Awakening of African Consciousness. So I did that series in an attempt to elevate the level of political and cultural consciousness, right? My goal with that series was, Sun Tzu says, he has a quote where he says, to know yourself and to know your enemy. When you know yourself and know your enemy, you need not fear the results of 1,000 battles, right? So that was both a pan-European and a pan-African analysis so that people could understand the chessboard, the way that our enemy maneuvers and moves, his strategies, his tactics. That's what I was laying out with that particular lecture series in an attempt to elevate the consciousness, right? Because as we said earlier, information is meant to lead to transformation, right? So typically, if you know better, you're familiar with the concept garbage in, garbage out, right? So if I'm trying to create a strategy to point me to some type of action, then the quality of my inputs is going to determine the quality of my actions, right? So I'm trying to raise the level and quality of inputs going into the Black political analysis to help crystallize or sharpen our activity, right? So that was what that first lecture was about, which led to the street politics. Now, street politics, I did that in conjunction with it was like towards the tail end of the general election, right leading up to the general election. So I went out during the summer because a lot of people were talking this nonsense about, our ancestors died for the right to vote, and just a whole bunch of like nonsense
every year.
So what I did with that is I went to places in Philly, because historically Philly has always played a significant role in Black America's overall political thrust. But I went to certain places in Philly where Black people were actually murdered for voting, to tell the history of that fight and that struggle, and also breaking down the division that we have within the Black community, right? Where you have, the Black masses, for lack of a better term, and the Black elite, and these two groups, their position towards voting has always been very different. So I use that course to kind of like tease some of these historical elements out, to basically show that anybody who is making the statement that our ancestors died for the right to vote are being flagrantly ahistorical. And they are actually weaponizing our history and playing on our emotion for their own individual benefit. Because I say we have this situation called political sharecropping, where I say the Black elite, they own the land, but the Black masses pick the cotton. And the goal of the political operatives in our community is to usher us to the polls to deliver the Black vote for the Democratic Party.
Right.
And in return, that very small group gets some kickbacks, right? They get, a quid pro quo for the Black vote. So by and large, the Black community doesn't receive anything, but individuals within the Black community receive position, they receive contracts, they receive access to the Democratic Party donor class, right? They get to elevate their individual position by selling out their people. And what I mean by selling out, I mean you literally convince your people to go vote, knowing they wouldn't get anything in return. And you got the only benefits and trinkets that came out of it, but no policy came out of it. But some individual things came out of it that helped you to advance your economic interests. And I was trying to call that situation out in the street politics course.
Oh, and also in the the documentary that's highlighted as well. And it needs to be shine a spotlight on, because we have people that we love, respect for their works and all that, but are on the wrong side of this thing, politically, for the African in America. And unfortunately, that's just what it is. And, we have to speak on these issues. You can't be silent on them. It doesn't help us as a people to be silent on them. Let's talk about your, I don't know if this is your most recent debate, but the debate about Pan-Africanism with the Ados brother. Did the debate go the way you expected, and did you get the outcome that you wanted?
Wow. I mean, the debate that I had, I think, I think clearly anybody of any intelligence that watched that particular debate,
I'm gonna go ahead and say it for you. Everybody is. I didn't get a chance to check it out, but everybody told me you watched that boy. As we say in the city, that you watched that boy. So was it something that you anticipated his arguments, or was he just ill prepared?
I was disappointed. I was very disappointed. I only took the debate. I didn't really know much about his background, right? I had only seen Black Power Media had hosted a panel discussion probably like 2 weeks before we did our debate, and he was one of the speakers who was on there representing the ADOS side of the argument. They don't refer to themselves as ADOS; they refer to themselves as freedmen. But when a lot of his arguments were just, I mean, they were like extreme levels of like coon philosophy when I was listening to him. But he was able to articulate himself very well, and he was very passionate. And I think that when looking at that forum, he was probably the best speaker for that particular group. So what happened was, about a week or two after that, we're all on Twitter. Excuse me. And they were like calling out Dr. Greg Carr, and they was just spreading a lot of disinformation about Pan-Africanism. So I jumped into the exchange and said, basically I said, I'll be a huckleberry. You know what I mean? Like, if Dr. Carr don't want to, don't want it, like I definitely will take it.
Right.
And so long story short, I took the debate because this dude was supposed to be some type of world-class, like, college debater. So I'm like, okay, this is somebody, you know what I mean? This is somebody who's going to be, like, prepared, who, like, knows what he's doing. So I'm like, yeah, let's definitely do this. But after the debate was over, I found out that he was a Moor. He used to be the president of the Moorish American Party. And I was even further disappointed because I'm like, damn, like, if I would have knew that, like, there's no way I would have stepped into that debate, because it's not a winning debate. And I know that debates are not about your debate partner. It's about the audience, right? You're trying to influence the audience one way or the other. But I feel like when you're arguing with somebody who's not arguing in good faith, you're going to spend a significant amount of time trying to undo all of the straw men and disinformation that they are putting out there. And I feel like that entire group, whether it be ADOS or B1 or FBA, like that entire segment.
Wait, there's more?
Yes. That entire segment has not introduced anything to the conversation on reparations and Pan-Africanism but confusion. No, and so I would have stayed away from that debate had I known that in advance. So, but yeah, I mean, the debate is available. It's on my sister channel. Her name is Zakiya Sinkar Jabbar. If anybody want to go check it out, that debate is still available. Now, this past weekend, I went on to Dr. Ma'at's channel to kind of like just do a recap of the debate and of my position, which is a position that can't even be disputed. But when you have somebody on the other side who is just not really qualified or informed enough on the topic, they think that they're actually in a fight, and it's like, no, like this is not a debate of equals. Like, you're not my equal on this particular topic. You don't even know enough to even engage with me. So, like, I choose to remove myself from the discussion.
You got to sometimes
because it's a waste of my time, and it's not like I can teach you because you refuse to be taught. Right? There's an amazing essay that you can find online. It's called "Why Facts Don't Change People's Minds." Why facts don't change our minds. Research that essay, and it gets into the psychology of behavior and belief. And when I read that essay, I said, "Listen, man, I will never."
You can't waste time.
I'm not wasting my time. Like, I'm not trying to convert. I'm not trying to convert anybody. And what happens is, in the conscious community, you have this situation where, first of all, the conscious community is woefully inadequate when it comes to politics. Like, when it comes to the Black revolutionary tradition. So when it comes to Pan-Africanism, Black nationalism, like strategy about our fight, the conscious community, this isn't even your discussion.
Right.
The way that I categorize the conscious community, you have a lot of Black people who defected from Christianity, and they end up getting into Nuwapu and 5% and all these, and so it's a bag of confusion. But they bring that approach to a discussion on history and science, and it's like you can't mix the two. So
what are we doing here?
I wouldn't have even taken that debate if I knew that was his background. I would have just like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, I trust me. I've said, no, I'm good to plenty of people. Many people don't even realize I've never done a formal debate. And when people say that, they're like, that's not true, and they try to prove me wrong that I participate. I'm like, I never participated in a formal debate. I've never been one of the debaters. I've probably argued with some people online, maybe argue with you in person, but I've never participated in a formal debate, and there's a reason, because I have to respect you as an opponent. And most of the people that wanted to debate me or said something about debating me at a specific time, I didn't respect their work. I did. Yeah, I thought it was garbage. There was a time that young Pharaoh wanted to debate me, and I declined. I said I don't even want to have a conversation with you. Why would I debate you? And there's been others. My brother Uncle take a debate from anybody, but me myself, I have to respect your work. And if I don't respect your work, I just can't bring myself to even create arguments on what you got going on.
Yeah, it's a waste of time. It
It really
is.
is. It's fruitless. Is going. Most people don't even know how to construct arguments in formal debate.
Yeah, people don't have debate discipline, so it's
Yeah,
like they end up dragging you way into the weeds and like
yeah,
arguing things that cannot it becomes just insanity. So I rather at least I know if my opponent has some type of debate discipline and like is using the scientific method, like we understand how to qualify evidence and sources and reason and logic and like all these things matter.
right.
You understand what I'm saying? So
You can't even falsify, arguments or verify evidence, and I'm supposed to waste time with you, and I ain't gonna do it. Brother JC Hughes, MossiWarriorClan Warrior, appreciate you coming in the building. My brother Bomani is in the building. We waiting on that album, brother. We waiting on that album, brother. We waiting on that album, brother. I just wanted to say that 3 times because I've been waiting since 2015 for this brother to drop another album, and he been stalling me out. I don't appreciate it. He know what I'm talking about. That's just me and him, man. But yeah, that brother is crazy, man. But Brother Vossa said no one sees a Panther strike until it's too late. Yeah, you might not see me coming. You never know. You never know when I act off of passion sometimes as well. And when I do, you'll certainly know it. That's just how I roll. But I in your documentary about you talked about a place, Society Hill. Tell us about this and why people should know about this area.
The correlation that I drew, Society Hill. Society Hill is the community adjacent to where W.E.B. Du Bois did the historic study of the Philadelphia Negro. But this area used to be an area that was predominantly black about 100 years ago. And it was the first area in the United States to go under urban renewal, right? So gentrification, this is where the model for gentrification was developed.
Wow.
And so today, Society Hill is the wealthiest zip code in the city of Philadelphia. And the reason why I was drawing those parallels, you got to watch the documentary because there's actually during Black History Month, I put some of the behind the scenes footage up on my YouTube that gives a much longer explanation of the Society Hill part of the discussion, because I wouldn't do it justice trying to break it all down here, given the time that we have.
Right.
But the parallel that I was drawing is that if we look 100 years ago, the area that we were standing in when we were recording was all black. If we look at what's happening to our people right now, wherever we are, we're being pushed out. And the question that I was trying to get people to wrestle with was, when our people were leaving the South during the Great Migration, they were fleeing terror, but they were also in search of greater economic opportunities in the industrial zones of North America, right? The industrial centers, which were the cities at that time, because this is where all the factories were at. But when our people arrived, we got trapped in these industrial centers, which the capitalist system divested from. So now you have all these abandoned factories, you have no employment, and you still have terrorism. But now instead of the Klan, it's the police. So our people have been in this condition for a significant period of time. But now another migration is occurring, and it's a forced migration. It's a dislocation. So our people are being pushed out via gentrification now. But the question I was getting people to wrestle with is like, where are we going? When we left from the south to the north, it was, oh, we were going to the north because that's where jobs were. You know, there were new black communities being developed. But now, like, they are creating these pockets of killing fields, literally, like literally killing fields, because you've taken poor, impoverished people that have been awash in a certain culture for a certain period of time and putting them all in a pocket with no resources and telling them to survive. So we're getting pushed out of the cities. I don't care where you live at. I don't care if you live, but like there is no refuge. You know, for a while there were lots of black people running from Philly down to Atlanta. Lots of black people in New York running from New York down to Philly. Like, black people wherever we are being pushed out and trying to find a way to get some ground under our feet here in the United States. And the issue is we are being systematically cleansed, which is why in the documentary I state all of these economic factors, the FBA movement, all these movements where black people are waving the American flag, that's a signal of distress. People are waving that flag because they're on a sinking ship and they're asking Uncle Sam to come save us. Like, yo, we drowning down here. We dying. Like, we American. We not trying to give you no resistance. We ain't with that Pan-African stuff. In fact, I'll be an informant. I'm going to tell you what they doing. Right. So they basically waving the white flag with these particular movements, and they're saying like, yo, just cut us a reparations check, because without that check, we can't economically survive in the U.S. So the pressure is on, and everybody is feeling.
And they built their whole argument around, you know, reparations. So, you know, them lobbying to different political platforms to you know, get some results, and that was the big thing that I've heard for the last, you know, 2 or 3 years prior to election time, and here we are post-election.
The reality is that black people as a unit, as a collective, cannot survive in America without some type of economic transformation. And given the scope of their imagination, there are two types of transformations that can occur. There's what would be a mass redistribution of wealth that would just be taken from the very rich and given to everybody. You know, like that's like a socialist or a communist perspective. Or the other redistribution is that of I don't even know if you can call it a redistribution, but the other big payout would be reparations, where the government pays out for historical crimes against the black people, right? Those are the only two options that these people see as for survival, right? And they realize that the socialist option is never going to happen in America. No. So they're only left with this one, right? The reparations option. And in order to what's the term I'm looking for? In order to appeal, right, to the political structure, to the machinery that runs things, they are crafting the reparations argument in a manner where they're wrapping themselves in this conservative, xenophobic, anti-African position. And and that's why I said in the debate when people talk about reparations, like, it depends. It's like, do you see reparations as an act of resistance or a request for inclusion? Because if you're just asking to be included in your enemy's settler colonial project, then you don't care about our political prisoners. Like you don't really care about our survival as an entity. Like you just trying to figure out how can I as an individual survive because I can't. And my argument is that knowing this economic reality that we're faced with, the only choice we have is to fight. And the greatest weapon that we have in fighting or resisting is that of Pan-Africanism. So that's what it comes down to. It's either you're a fighter or you're not. And everybody who's screaming at anti-Pan-Africanism is clearly that they're not looking to fight. And let me be clear, there's Pan-Africanism is a huge umbrella. So you got people under there that ain't trying to fight either. You know what I mean? So you gotta be real clear. I'm a Garveyite. You understand what I'm saying? Like I'm with all the smoke. But like I don't know, man. This is a very it's not a complex conversation. It's only complex because we're so ignorant. Because we've been made to be so ignorant and so docile. So what becomes complex is trying to pierce through the ignorance of our people to get them to get out of their own way. But Dr. Wilson was on to something, because she said in the ISIS papers that it's not so much ignorance as it is fear. So the smoke screen, people will throw up ignorance as a smoke screen to hide fear. You understand what I'm saying? She said everything that we do, everything that we engaged in is due to the fact that we are afraid, and we are scared to admit that we are afraid, and we don't want to look face to face with the problem and do something about it. So all of our behavior, all of our regressive and pathological behavior that we engage in is all meant to help us avoid looking at the real problem because we scared to death. Yeah. And that's really what it comes down to.
Don't want to face reality. I talk to people about that all the time. And they just have this super optimistic outlook about things. And I'm like, where is this optimism coming from? Because
it's not based on history.
Yeah, it's not coming from a historical root. How do you generate these optimistic views given what you are seeing in America? And it comes down to fear. It does come from fear.
Read that essay, bro. Why facts don't change our minds.
I definitely will.
I put the link in your private chat.
I definitely will, man. I definitely will check that out because I'm very interested in that. You talked about the challenge of freedom, and I think that directly correlates to what we were just talking about with fear, because the challenge of freedom is a great challenge. It's a great task incumbent upon us to where you either fighting or you're not. Talk about the challenge of freedom and that undertaking.
Yeah, Booker T. Washington and his autobiography, Up From Slavery, I think it's like the first chapter or the second chapter. He tells
let me highlight this real quick, because you see this on the screen. He say Black August is when the album is dropping. So I want to get Bomani Mayasa of United Front on record saying in August,
Revenge is a Bloody Blade.
This album. If it ain't out in August, I'm going to drive up to Canada and find you, brother. I'm tired of you playing with me. So everybody go get ready, man. Revenge is a Bloody Blade from United Front General's own Bomani Mayasa, man. Y'all got to get ready for this album. If y'all don't have Lumumba's Revenge, get that as well. So I just wanted to highlight that quickly. But go ahead, brother.
Yeah, no, I was saying that Booker T. Washington in his autobiography, Up From Slavery, it's like either in the first chapter or the second chapter, he tells the story of that first generation of our people after slavery, right? That generation of people who were born enslaved and gained their freedom. Mm-hmm. And he talks about how after a certain period of time, people, the weight of freedom had started to weigh down on the shoulders of our people. Yeah. And many of our people slowly, one by one, especially the older folks, started to walk back to the plantation to work out some type of arrangement with
Yeah.
Massa, right? To basically put themselves back into slavery. And I think that that's what that same conditioning, that same reflex is what you see acted out in our politics and our behavior. Malcolm has an excellent quote where he's talking about the difference between the Negro Revolution and the Black Revolution. And he talks about revolution is about land. And he say these niggas ain't asking for no freedom. They trying to crawl back on the plantation, right? It's the same thing. People are in fear of manhood and sovereignty because those things require responsibility. They require action. They require work. You have to feed yourself. You have to do for yourself. You have to protect yourself. And people are like, you out of your mind. Like, this white man is taking care of me for all like Dr. Amos Wilson used to say, he used to talk about the condition of slavery as one in which all of your life-sustaining institutions are controlled by another group. So when we look at our situation, our food, clothing, water, shelter, everything. I mean, we can't do anything without spending some money that got a white face on it. You understand what I'm saying? So everything is controlled by another group. Like, that's our reality. Right. And to try to get people to de-link from slavery is the most difficult thing to do. So what we've done is we've put our heads down and we've committed ourselves to the religion of reforming white people. And what I was trying to show in the documentary is that this pathology, this terrorism, is something that you can't reform. So if you can't reform it, then you need to build up some strength, right? Kwame Ture used to say, I don't care if you're racist. That doesn't bother me. If you have the ability to practice your racism on me, that's when it becomes an issue. And what our brightest minds, our most astute minds have said is we have to create a situation, build up enough group power so that they can no longer practice their racism on us. But no, that's not what we're trying to do. We are trying to use the ballot box. We're trying to march to get them to pass laws to stop racism, pass laws to protect us. And no, we're only forestalling the inevitable, right? And Garvey talked about this in Philosophies and Opinions. Like, he's asked, will the black race be exterminated? Right? Will the black man in America be exterminated? And they are systematically cleansing us. Like, when you look at my work right now and moving forward, a lot of my work is centered around refortifying black men. Because black men, I mean, black men, oh man, we've been destroyed. Like, when you look at the silent crisis playing out right now within the black male population, I'm 37, right? So 10 years above me, 10 years below me. If you look at 10 years above me, you got brothers with all types of ailments we shouldn't have. Like, dudes is suffering from obesity, diabetes, failed kidneys, having strokes, heart attacks. Dudes is impotent. Like, it's all like we are really not well. And then when you look 10 years below me, right? So that 37 to 27 is like homicide. And then mentally, like, we just not there. And there is no place in this country for us as black. There's no place on this earth. I think that the situation is a bit more acute in Black America, but what you see playing out in Black America is just a microcosm of what will be occurring globally. But under the system of white domination, there's nowhere for black male bodies to be absorbed except the graveyard or the prison, right? So we are being systematically destroyed. So we have to come together, right? Because we're the first barrier of protection of our community. So our community doesn't even have any protection, right? There's no manhood in the race right now. So that's kind of like, I know I'm going off on a tangent, but that's kind of like, where my work is centered right now and going forward, right? Doing the work of repairing our brothers, right? Because we broken.
We need that.
We broken.
We need that desperately, man. Desperately. African manhood must survive. African manhood must evolve. African manhood must thrive. And I like, with all this alpha male, beta male, mega male stuff that I hear all the time. I like my brother Bomani's solution to that, and that's a
Uh-huh.
soft male.
Mm-hmm.
Because reinstitutes the Africanness back in the equation. And for people that know me, they know I've spoke about this many a times. I keep telling people that these Greek sort of identifiers are not meant for humans.
Which by the way, not on. I spoke on this before, but not only have the white folks have already debunked the science behind it,
Right.
but if you, as a black man, try to adhere to alpha beta dichotomy, do you realize that the white man has made himself the alpha on the planet? So, but by default, all men who are non-white are considered beta under that dichotomy, right? So it's like, why would you ever even be using this type of framework to identify yourself as a man?
Right. Like I always say, it's a study called ethology, and it's studying, primates and different types of animals in a enclosed space and see who takes charge, who does this. I'm like, I'm not a gorilla or a cat or a dog or whatever they're studying. This is not meant for humans. Like, not these things for some reason.
let me. This book that I'm writing, I have an essay where I'm teasing this out a bit more, which you're touching on. First of all, this is white folks based upon their cultural paradigm examining animal behavior in a caged environment. Whenever you exist in a caged environment, hierarchies based upon domination will come into play. They call that a pecking order. Right. You put chickens in a cage.
Yeah.
That pecking order is going to develop. So manhood is not based upon a pecking order because we're not meant to be caged. But in addition to that, the white scientist or ethnologist who was doing that study, he came back and said, "Oh, I was wrong." He said, "What I didn't realize was that the wolf who I was referring to as the alpha," because he came up with this terminology by studying wolves. He said the wolf that I was referring to as the alpha was not actually dominating the other wolves. He was the father. Those other males in the pack were his litter. They were his children. So he was examining a father-son relationship, but based upon his cultural paradigm and viewing everything through the lens of domination, he saw it as a dominating thing. Oh, there's this one dominating wolf. But they went and took it. He took it back. But like, I know a lot of our brothers mean well, but manhood is about more than this false machismo and peacockiness.
You ain't got to be the hardest dude in the room to be the most effective dude in the room. To be
that's what I'm saying. And the type of manhood that we have right now, we don't have manhood. The type of maleness that we practice right now as black men is rooted in a hyper individualism that produces continued conflict. We don't have brotherhood, so everybody got to be the top dog, right? But in war, you're trained to fight as a unit. But we can't fight as a unit.
How we gonna do that?
Because if we get in ranks, I'm looking to the shoulder like, yo, who this dude think he is? You know what I mean? Like, so I'm beefing with the dude right next to me because my sense of self is just so deflated.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? And we need to correct that so that we can get in ranks and fight as a unit. You can't win fighting as a bunch of individuals. Everybody want to be the top dog. Like, that's some individualist European stuff that we need to be alleviating that. So don't come around me talking to alpha. I don't care how you can listen, man. All right, go ahead. Your next question, bro. I'm sorry, man.
I heard you talk about this briefly, but explain for the people, what is drill music? And why are you leading a charge to end the drill and the things that are attached to this culture and phenomenon?
Well, first, I don't want to say that I'm leading the charge on it. I just, again, I felt passionately about the situation, so I spoke on it, and I just used the hashtag "end the drill" associated with my commentary, right? But there's lots of people who don't work on this. But drill music is a phenomenon that started in Chicago. The conflict there between the GDs and the BDs is really drill culture, right? So if you know anything about like the inner cities across America, during the early 2000s, a wave of indictments hit Black America. So the generation of males 21 to like 31 got caught up in that indictment, right? I don't care where you were, Philly. I don't care. Like the feds under Bush were very heavily with the gang and the drug task force. So in my community, probably in your community, if you grew up in the hoods, there was just indictments everywhere. Because prior to that, in the 90s, although you had conflict and you had gun violence, there still was some type of structure in the street, right? You still related to the dudes who were 10 and 15 years older than you, right? Because their presence was felt. Like you just couldn't step out there and do what you wanted because there was some type of structure, some type of order, although it wasn't in any order based upon African manhood, right? So what happens in the early 2000s is you get this, but then you also get lots of Black people being dislocated because, like in Philly, they're knocking down the projects, Chicago knocking down the projects, flattening out the landscape, and you creating new environments where folks who once had conflict with each other are now in very close proximity. Now, you on 63rd, I'm on 64th. You on 63rd, I'm on 65th. So in Chicago, you have the GDs and the BDs, right? The gangster disciples, the Black disciples. These are their pups who started the drill music. These are people who in the early 2000s, none of these kids were probably older than 10 years old. They probably start hitting their teens in 2008, 2009, 2010. Around that time, they're probably like 14, 15, 16, right? I'm giving you some insight here, right? So mind you, right before that, the streets are cleared of any structure that was there. So now there's just the babies of the BDs and the GDs. This all emerges at the same time that YouTube is emerging, right? Because YouTube emerges in 2005. Instagram emerges in 2010. Drill culture emerges parallel with social media. And you have this situation where you have these babies, high schoolers, who have conflict with one another, and the conflict hits the internet. The internet conflict goes back to the streets, shooting over and over. It becomes a cycle. And what got introduced to that culture is the music. So now, because it becomes like the term I use is a spectator sport. And the music is where you now get to introduce drill to the audience. So now I'm rapping about doing a drill on my ops, right? The opposition. Doing a drill, I'm running down on you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm rapping about it in the music, but not only am I rapping about it, I'm name dropping, right? Like Chicago started this whole practice of if I kill somebody from the opposition, then I'll name the weed after that individual. And then if somebody from my hood gets killed, we gonna name this section after that person, right? So when you look at like the BD and GD situation with like King Von and Young Dirk and FBG Duck and all this.
I was going to ask you, is that a part of the?
Okay. Yes, absolutely. So you have this situation where Chief Keef blows up with that "Don't Like" track, and not everybody's knowing what's happening. Like, so he's in the track talking about he's smoking on Tuka, and to everybody else around the world, we think Tuka, though, that's just what they call weed in Chicago. But no, Tuka is a young man who was 15 years old who got killed at a bus stop. Wow. And now, since he got killed, now he's a pack. So they made him into a weed pack. So we're disrespecting him even in death. And that level of deaf culture is only progressive. So it only continues to worsen, and it locks you into a death or a genocidal death spiral. So it started in Chicago, but now because the music
that's
has
what's going on
spread,
here in Atlanta too.
and because there's such an audience for it, it's everywhere.
Wow.
It's Philly, it's New York, it's Newark, it's Atlanta. Now the West Coast has they've always had Blood and Crips.
We always
But
think that.
The East Coast and down south, Dallas, everywhere is being Memphis. This drill culture, it has literally taken hold in our communities, almost like the crack epidemic. But it's an epidemic of gun violence that the babies are playing out on one another, and it's making them into serial killers, right? Because now I
wondered what happened, because I was talking to my wife about the current condition of Atlanta, and we were saying, when did Atlanta become the battleground for people from other cities to come down here and shoot each other and settle their beefs? Like, I don't know when they picked Atlanta, and I think it's because during COVID we were pretty much open, and people was coming down here, and getting into shootouts, and I'm like, these people not even from here,
nobody in Atlanta is from Atlanta.
Go shoot in your city. Like, dang, like what do you?
No, it's no reprieve from it anywhere, bro.
Wow.
And the way that it's being spread through hip hop, like Philly this year, Philly is on track to hit Philly is trending towards 500 homicides, 500 or more. The last time we hit that number was 1990. It's the height that was the height of the crack epidemic.
This is insane.
Literally, that was the height.
This is insane.
The last time we hit that number, 500. So we trending towards that right now, and people don't see any end in sight, and it's only getting worse.
It's cool to them, like.
It isn't just our man. Like, this thing is deeper. Like, at the end of the day, it's spiritual warfare, bro, and I think you know that. Because it's just not our sons, it's our daughters as well. Like the horror culture and the drill culture go hand in hand. Like they're like, so it speaks to the vibration that we function on in our community. We are at such a low vibration that these plagues can penetrate and find fertile ground for growth and adoption. And everybody got this whole individual thing where, I'm just doing me. Like, nah, that's not an African cultural, you know what I mean? Like, but we've been made into individuals, and then if you say anything about what's being done in our culture, people are like, oh, you're a hater, or you're old, or you know what I'm saying? So we got work to do, bro.
You can't just say the truth, you got to be something got to be wrong with you, because you don't want to go kill people. Like, you know what I'm saying? Something got to be wrong with you if you don't want to go take off your clothes and start an OnlyFans page. Something got to be wrong with you, like what's going on? You don't want to get money. You don't want to go get drugs. You don't want to go get locked up. What's wrong with you? Like, oh man, it's crazy, man. I want to say this before we get off the air, because I know the FBA and then the ADOS are probably going to come for me, whatever. Specifically with the FBA, I watched this movement grow. Tariq Nasheed played ADOS. He played nice. And he got close enough, and he hijacked Antonio Moore's and Yvette Carnell's movement. He hijacked it for his own personal monetary gain. I saw it coming. I told a buddy of mine, because he was ADOS, I said, he's like, even your boy Tariq Nasheed's with us. I was like, you think that? That's what you think? Give it 5 months. And in the next 5 months, he was attacking them, because that's what he does. Now I'm not a proponent of Antonio Moore or Yvette Carnell either, but they got their movement hijacked from him, by somebody that just wants to use it for personal gain. Before COVID hit, he had a convention set up where he was charging astronomical prices to get in this convention. And if you wanted to be a special, donor, you could pay more money and all that. And I'm like, what do you need? He was trying to raise $300,000 for a convention. On what planet do you need $300,000 for a convention? Who is coming? Is Beyonce coming? Burna Boy? Who you got who coming to this convention? Like, the damn Avengers better be there for $300,000. Are you crazy? Like, y'all can't see that y'all line this dude's pockets over and over and over and over. He's about lining his pockets, and he's about taking advantage of the black struggle. But I'm a hater. Yeah, what's wrong with me? You don't want to give him $300,000. What's wrong with he deserves it? Like, okay.
Yeah. What I'll say is this. I'm an organizer, and I put on events. So in terms of like the cost of conferences, I've never threw a conference like in person. But if I was to ever do one, the caliber of conference that I would want to do could easily probably be like in that range in terms of raising money. But I'm a very transparent person, right? I'm a CPA by trade, so I don't have a problem showing you the books.
So if I ask for the books, you ain't gonna cuss me out and say,
no, I don't understand that as a PR. I would feel like you would want to instill trust into the community that you are going to raise funds. So if I'm raising funds from the community for a long-term project, for me, I would just create a website where people can go. Even if you don't donate, you can just go to the website and access our financials. It shows our plan. Everything is there, but awesome. It's not a good strategy. It's not a good PR strategy to instill trust, to attack people. But yeah, that being said, I mean, I want to harbor on Tariq, right? He's found a business model that works, and unfortunately, it is what it is. And people feel like, people don't consider it robbery if they feel like they're getting something in return. So one thing we have to remember is that the conscious community in many ways is like church. Right, a lot of people are just a step removed. Like I said, the conscious community is run over with people who are just Christian, people who've defected from Christianity. So they think. They're not serious about liberation, but they want to be in spaces where they feel good, and they, you could talk about melanin and blackness, and you could talk about what Bomani said. He said, throwing Bobby Hemmett books in and he said you don't become he said you don't become a revolutionary because you start eating quinoa. Like I'm off. Yeah. That's my shit though. When I be working out, like I'll be having Bomani banging. But
United Front is the jam always, man.
But you have to understand that we have a lot of those types of people that take up space, and for them, like let them do their thing if they want to support. Yeah. Like it is what it is. But I think for those of us who are serious, we can't get distracted by all the noise that's coming from the crowd, because there's a lot of people in the crowd that they just aren't serious. Right. This is why you have 1 million people on YouTube who've made an industry out of talking about black issues, but you can never hear them talk about anything materially they are doing to organize to change the conditions in our community, right? Because power operates through organization. Right. I don't want to hear about you handing out book bags in the hood. Like a drug dealer can give out turkeys. Like we're not talking about that. We're talking about something different. And you don't see that reflected in a lot of folks who talk this black stuff. It's just talk. So you gotta be able to discern
and a lot of them
what. Out. You understand? So
they flame out. Here today, gone tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But like you said, for those of us that are serious, it's not a phase. It's not a something we pick up on the weekend. It's a lifestyle. It's a goal in mind, and we got to create things and continue to create things and be, as the Congolese say, a system within systems. And that's why I contacted you about coming on this show, getting more qualified people, on this show, because we got a million channels that let anybody and everybody on there. But I always want to get qualified people on this show so we can continue to introduce people into people they may not have heard of, and always.
I get it. I get in my
guy out there,
I get in my own way, bro.
Work. We all do.
No, but listen, people tell me I'm not entertaining enough. Like, and I gotta dumb it down. I'm like, you got me messed. You must assume that like my goal is to build an audience. Like, that's not my goal. I'm not trying to build an internet following.
Work, man.
Like, my goal is to put out the analysis and to connect with like-minded folks who are trying to do work. This coming weekend, we having if you're in Philly, we having a fitness at Juneteenth event, a Juneteenth fitness at Vernon Park event, and I just built this program called Cobra Calisthenics that I'm going to be introducing at the event. So if you in Philly, come get it in with us. And we know a lot of push-ups, a lot of pull-ups, a lot of dips. Getting the brothers together, getting it strong. But it's a multifaceted program. This is just not about building muscle. We ain't gonna be out there with our shirts all flexing, but we're gonna be getting strong. We're gonna be working on our health. We're gonna be working on our character, right? We're gonna be getting sharp mentally. Like, so this is where I'm moving, the direction I'm moving in. So starting this weekend, be launching a 15-week program, working with brothers. Just getting fit, getting strong. And Bomani, man, shout out to you, bro. Like, I hit you up, I think last year, man, told you I appreciated your motivation, because you posting those workout videos had me like, every time I see one, I'm like, yo, what am I doing? I'm supposed to be
what am I doing?
Yeah, saying so, like, seeing that constantly, eventually just like, all right, I got to get on it. And then you just get on it and you don't stop. So I appreciate Brother Bomani for that, for the motivation and the inspiration.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Shout out to the whole United Front as usual. Man, thank you for coming, brother. Thank you for coming. Tell the people where they can go watch Un-American Dilemma.
You can go right to the website. It's the UnAmericanDoc.com. I'll drop the link and you can share it with them.
Absolutely.
But it's the UnAmericanDoc.com. You can go check it out. I appreciate the support. Let me, I'm easy to get in contact with on social media. You can hit me on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at Omowale Afrika. If you want to tap in, you want to do some work, you're trying to collaborate, just reach out. You know what I'm saying? I'm always looking to expand the network with, African people who are serious, right? Who are serious about doing the work, who's serious about getting us liberated, getting us free, and getting us strong. So if that's you may definitely tap in.
Absolutely. So you can see it right there. UnAmericanDoc.com, and check that DVD out, man. It's worth your time. I've watched it myself, so I'm not just talking. It's definitely worth your time. Definitely worth taking notes. Definitely worth a second watch, and distribute it throughout the community, man, so we can be more politically aware and politically educated. So I want to thank you again, brother, for coming on. As always, y'all know, like, share, and subscribe. The links are in the description for all of our products. We didn't put them all together for y'all. I know y'all complain. We got a bunch of links. They're all in the description. The deck of cards, the books, the Pan-African Journal, the Mboka apparel, all of that is in the description of this video. So check that out as well. And as always, I leave you guys with the Yoruba word for goodbye, Odabo. Talk to y'all next time.